morning, Lisa. I'm good, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Marvellous. Okay, so welcome everybody to this morning's webinar. For those of you who aren't aware of who APSCo is, we are a trade association representing companies within the professional recruitment sectors. And we provide a wide range of services. If you go onto our website, you'll see the whole portfolio. I just wanted to briefly highlight three that may be of interest to you. The first being our charity ball. This next Friday, the 30th of November, we have movers and shakers from across the whole recruitment sector gathering for our Great Gatsby charity ball. It's a spectacular evening, raising vital funds for the NSPCC. Tickets are still available, a short supply of individual or a couple of tables. And if you are interested in coming along, then look at the APSCo website or drop me an email. So that's a Great Gatsby charity ball. Secondly, this may interest you as potential marketeers on the call. We have our marketing forum. We run this 3 times a year, and the next one's on Wednesday, the 25th of November, from 3 till 5 p.m, based in central London. And we're delighted to have an ex-BBC correspondent and award-winning journalist, Fergal Parkinson, joining us to run an interactive workshop focused on maximising your corporate media communication. Again, full details are on our website, or drop me an email if you'd like more information. And finally, we have a members meeting. We run these every quarter, and our last one of the year is on Thursday, the 3rd of December. We run this in London, Manchester and Birmingham, and as it's the last one of the year, we'll be doing a roundup of our year's activity from an APSCo perspective. We have an economist joining us from HSBC and a legislative partner from Squire Patton Boggs, both providing a review of 2015 and some insight into what can be expected for the early part of 2016. Now, I'm now delighted to hand you over to Lisa. We have a long-standing association with Barclay Jones. They're a valued affiliate of APSCo with a wealth of knowledge of the recruitment technology and social media for recruiters. And they regularly provide these webinars. This is the last one this year, but we have 3 more scheduled for next year, so do keep your eyes open for those. So it leaves me with nothing further to say than to put you in the safe hands of Lisa for what I believe will be a very insightful 45 minutes. So over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julie. Right, everyone, as much as I'm very excited about Star Wars happening later on this year, I'm obviously going to say punch it chewy because we've got a huge amount to get through today. And as with all of our webinars, you know, please respect the fact that if we were to do a decent strategic review of your business, we'd be taking a damn sight more than an hour, and I'd probably talk slower. So today we're going to do some tasters on social media strategy. If you've not come across me before, I'm obviously all over social media, so please feel free to connect. My community is really important to me. I take it very, very seriously, as you should too. Quick Jedi mind trick for you there. Follow me on Twitter at Lisa Mary Jones. Again, I absolutely adore Twitter. I have a lot of fun with it. I learn a lot, and I respect it massively, and I respect the people on it, so make sure you follow me on that. And obviously, just a quick pitch about our business. There's 3 main things that we do. We help recruiters choose and implement the most appropriate technology, be it a CRM system, job board posting, all that lovely stuff. We help recruiters and recruitment marketeers be more effective with social media as well, because for us, it can be a massive time waste and a huge boost to profits. So we're really, really keen to work with recruiters to make them more effective and overall to work with recruitment marketeers. We love recruitment. We absolutely love working with marketeers within recruitment, and we absolutely adore working with recruiters as well. We've certainly got a lot of tenure in the recruitment business. Certainly the Barclay and the Jones both started out in recruitment in the year 2000 and have not stopped and are unlikely to stop. There's one particular thing I want to tell you about, which is our Recruitment Marketing Academy. We have a number of lovely recruitment marketeers, from VPs of marketing right down to you gorgeous marketing coordinators, assistants and executives, and we mentor all levels of marketing to basically deliver ROI back into the business. And there's a list of things that we do. If you're interested in that, drop me a line. Thank you very much. Right, so quickly tell me, what day is it today, everybody? Again, in your chat facility, does anybody know what day it is today? And don't say 6th of November because that's just crazy town. It's definitely not Martini Day. We did a Bullhorn webinar recently and it was Martini Day, which was very, very interesting. We did a Twitter webinar earlier this year and it was National Goth Day, which again managed to go viral with Black Goth Pussy as the hashtag. God forbid. And one of the sessions that we ran on LinkedIn recently was Bring Your Dog to Work Day, which was quite cool. Unfortunately, when we've actually studied online, we found out that today is Love Your Lawyer Day. If there are any legal recruiters listening, you need to know this because you need to be marketing it. It's Nachos Day and it's also Saxophone Day, and I'm really sorry, but none of these things turn me on. So we've decided, because I recently went to see the fantastic Greg Savage, that because we're confused about what's going on from a day perspective today, there's nothing that interesting, that we're going to make it National Greg Savage Day. And by the way, he's potentially, from what I hear from LinkedIn, because he emailed me earlier on, drinking a bottle of Shiraz while listening, but it might be that he's watching a movie. He hasn't quite decided what he wants to do yet, so we'll let him be the judge of that. But the theme of this is going to be Greg Savage Day, and the reason for this is we went to see him recently. If you've been to see Greg talk in the last couple of weeks, because he has been in the UK, give me a Greg in your session, or maybe you've just seen him full stop and you think he's awesome. I seriously am one of his groupies. He's a massive advocate of the industry like me. We've got very big similarities in terms of how we like to kick it up the backside. But when he said that we must accept recruitment is now pretty important from a marketing perspective and it's merging with marketing, that was fantastic for me. Absolutely music to my ears. So we're talking about social media strategy today, and a strategy is not the end game. Creating a strategy is not a goal. Having the goal and then creating a strategy on the back of that is important. Now, you may have your own goals for 2016, but when we work with recruitment businesses, they tend to have some goals which are relatively similar to this. They want to improve their brand, their reach, whatever you marketeers or recruiters want to call it. You know, a marketeer will call it brand and reach, a recruitment consultant will call it probably money and the ability to trade, but we're looking to attract and engage, whether it be internal recruitment consultants, external talent, clients, all that lovely stuff. You guys want to make more money, and if you're in marketing, you must want to make more money for your client, which is your CEO, your CIO, etc. And a lot of marketeers, when I start working with them, are not focused on that, and they must be. That's the most important goal of any business, is to improve profit and increase speed. Speed is very important because your clients are competing with you right now. You've got to get to that talent before they do, and you've got to hook them in and keep them stuck to you, and we'll talk about that. A lot of my clients in 2016 are intent on growing their headcount as well because they see a massive opportunity. The UK recruitment market is currently worth £33 billion. Now, that's a decent pair of shoes from Harvey Nicks in my world. But what I also want you to think as well is that we're growing 10% every year. But we're not necessarily improving ourselves each year. And I find this shocking, being in recruitment for nearly 16 years now. The one thing that's always been through me, every single pore, is making recruiters more effective with whatever I can help them with, whether it be digital marketing, CRM. It's all about technology and it's all about speed, so you get more time on the phone, which we know is the most important thing. But a lot of my clients want to reduce the risk as well, and that's all about using digital tools in the most effective way, having policies, procedures and training. What's really, really common, though, when I go into businesses is that I don't see really any goals, but I see lots of stupidity. And again, that's a very strong word, bless your hearts, but it's Friday. So we blow loads of money, we look busy, creating lots of pretty graphs, we're in marketing. Nobody seems to get what we do. We don't seem to offer any value, or if we do, it's not really critical to the overall sales process. I was told by a 25-man recruitment business last week that they wanted to outsource their marketing because they didn't see that as a viable use of their time. And we don't do the outsource piece, we do the creating independence piece and creating great marketeers within businesses, and we include recruiters in that. So I was quite upset at that statement that sales is not marketing. I kind of think that when you meet a client, you're marketing your business, but hey, you're on this webinar because you think that marketing is important. So the kinds of things that we're going to talk about today are really about the kinds of strategies that you need to deliver the sorts of goals that we've been talking about. Loving Greg Savage is a big strategy for us this year and for all recruiters. And the reason I say this, whether or not you necessarily agree with everything he's got to say, some of the things that come out of his mouth are really important. Very, very focused. I had a client ring me on Wednesday, been to see her, and one of the things, or been to see Greg, and one of the things he'd said to her is, you've got to take responsibility as the business owner for the marketing of your business. Don't just outsource it. Don't just insource it to one individual. Give them lots of support, I suppose, is the way that he would look at it. And what he basically said in this session that I was with him recently was, too many recruitment leaders are short-term junkies and don't do strategy. And I don't want you to necessarily put your hands up if you're like that. But I think as an advocate of the industry, certainly what I'm considering is this. If you've been in recruitment for a while, and if we were in a room, I'd ask you to put your hands up. then I would say to you that the recession really did punch us in the face, and I think that's an understatement. And their confidence levels aren't what they were, and they never will be again, I think, even though the Telegraph said a couple of weeks ago that the recruitment sector is now stronger financially than it was pre-bust. So that's something to think about. But obviously what has now happened is we're so keen on these short-term fixes. We want everything. You know, I've sent a tweet and I've not placed anybody. So too many recruitment leaders are short-term junkies and don't do strategy. And obviously the idea of that is absolutely unacceptable. The thing to think about then, 2016 has to be about strategy. It has to be thinking long-term. And obviously when you're using social media, it absolutely is about that. The next thing I want you to think about from a marketing and recruitment perspective is a respect. Now, this is a high-level fluff piece for me, but it's about raising expectations. I often meet recruitment leaders who have an incorrect expectation of marketing. Either the short-term approach to it, they should press a button and something happens, or maybe their expectations are far too low. They don't think it's up to marketing to generate leads. They don't see how marketing can actually impact upon recruitment. And I obviously have a really big opinion on that. Again, Greg would say that your digital footprint is the most important asset that you have. And of course, what we're concerned about with Barclay Jones is what do you look and feel like online? Because no matter how many phone calls and face-to-face sessions you have, your digital footprint is actually the most visible to all of your talent and clients. And obviously you need to treat that with respect. This is my view and this is my quote of the day. If you're a marketeer, it's about recruiters. And this is the thing I work with my marketeers on every day. You've got to be very focused on what a recruitment consultant's workflow and goals are if you are to offer any value whatsoever. If you aren't aware of what their workflows and goals are, then all you're seen to be doing is interrupting their day with crap that's just going to pee them off. So just think about that. If you're a marketeer in the room, maybe you're not getting the kind of buy-in that you'd like to get. And that's a big goal for a lot of the recruiters that we work with, is that their marketeer is glued to the recruitment process. But I must stress as well, recruiters, you need to really think about how you treat your marketers. Do you actually explain to them and get them involved in the business strategy? Are the goals that you've set your marketeers about making more money and generating leads, or are they just about spending a budget? Or are they just a goal in a lot of my clients is to send mailers? Well, that's not a goal. That's a strategy. It might even be a tactic. The goal ultimately is to place more candidates in more jobs over less time so that you make more money. So make the goals of the marketing function extremely relevant to your business. The third thing I want to quickly talk to you about is being more competitive, and think about your social media strategy for 2016 and the fact that you want to end the year in a much better state than when you started. And not just relatively speaking, but maybe the share of the market that you've got. Now, there are lots of different businesses on the call right now, and you've really bared with me while we've had these technology issues. But just consider this. When Lewis Hamilton races, he doesn't just get in a car and slap his foot on the pedal. He is absolutely aware of what's going on from a competitive perspective. He measures fuel stop strategies. He looks at what tyres everybody's got. He's got a huge amount of intelligence, and then he gets in the car and drives really fast. And that's just something for you marketeers to consider. I equally come across recruiters who have no idea what's going on with their competition. They say they don't have time. This is ridiculous. You absolutely must make time to spy on your competition. There's loads of tools out there to help you do that. When I come across marketeers that have maybe done a bit of a web dive as to how the competitors look and feel on their web, that's all well and good. Personally, I like to benchmark all the clients that I work with. We look at all of their competitors. We grade them out of 10 across the 10 main channels that we work on, be it Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, blog, web, all of that stuff. We benchmark them, and then we set ourselves targets to improve those particular grades. And it's really something for you marketers to think about. How can I demonstrate to my business why my goals are what they are? Have I studied our competition and educated the business on it, or have I studied my competition and totally kept it to myself, which again, marketers are very good at doing. It's not just the data that's useful to marketers. You've got to then sort of squirt that out to the business and give some reason to your rhyming. Think about this. You need to be, as marketers and recruiters, risk assessing your clients. If you don't know how they're marketing themselves from a recruitment perspective, you're crazy. You need to look at, have they got careers pages on LinkedIn? What are they using Twitter for? Are they actually marketing themselves as a viable employer? How can you maybe work on the back of that? Or maybe what you need to do is think about jumping on the back of it, or growing your strategy next year to protect yourselves from it. But obviously you should be watching the competition as well. And James Bond always does this. He's very, very clever. Got lots of gadgets. So you need to be looking at what they're doing and how they're behaving online in order for you to have a decent strategy. Now, mobile obviously is the buzzword and has been for a number of years. And in February this year, Google gave us a royal kick up the backside by saying, if your website is not mobile, go jump. And basically, if you don't have a mobile or a responsive website, and responsive basically means it stretches to the size of the device that you're using, then you have a massive problem. But the other thing to consider is that it's not just your mobile website that we're interested in. It's also about trying harder with all of your social sites as well, all of your copy, everything to do with that. Now, in terms of things to consider, we've obviously got to think about what mobile traffic your website is trying to get and what kinds of people you're attracting. And what I mean by this is, have you ever actually looked at your data? Do you know what the statistics are? Do you know how many people with an iPhone or other mobile devices are trying to access your site? Do you even know what kinds of devices they're using? Can you mold your content strategy around the devices that people are using to access you? Sounds complicated. What it basically means is if 59% of the people accessing your website have got an iPhone, you should be giving out tips on how to use their iPhone better, because that's fantastic, sticky content. Think about as well and answer this question, and for those of you who've been on a webinar before, you might have an answer for this already, but when are you most engaged with your mobile device? Come through and give me some answers right now. When are you most engaged? So we've got the commute. What else have we got coming through? When's nothing on TV, 7 p.m. onwards, all the time, blah, blah, blah. Evening, on the train home, lots of stuff. 6:30 till 7:30 a.m., lovely stuff. And then finally, someone talks some sense. Colette tells me, this is really important. Most of the people we speak to in recruitment finally admit at some stage that being on the toilet and surfing is a pastime. Then what we're looking at is that most of you are loose surfing. Now, this could be a dirty secret literally, but obviously what we're interested in is understanding that when you're sat on the toilet and you're surfing, you're using the tiniest device in the world. And obviously if you're doing it, then your talent and clients are doing it as well. So something you can consider here is, what is the size of your content? What does it look like? What is it you're trying to say? Because if the majority of the people you're trying to access are sat on the toilet, which obviously that's a stat for another day, then what are you going to do with that information? In other words, they're relaxed, they're sat watching the TV, they're on the bus, they're on the tube. What kinds of content are you publishing? How do your jobs look? How accessible are you as a recruitment consultant? Think about some stats that I'm going to bring up. I'm not going to read them all out because you're very intelligent people. What's interesting though is at the moment, for some crazy reason, even though most of us do most of our surfing on a mobile device, as recruiters, we've only actually been able to develop enough that only 7% of people can apply via their phones. The other 93% of job application in today's market are happening using a desktop. That's disgusting. What's the point of this? It's forcing people to come off of their mobile device and log on via a desktop. That is ridiculous. It completely disrupts the process and prevents probably the best people applying. Give me an answer, ladies and gentlemen. What percentage of candidates actually expect to be able to apply for a job via their phone? Give me some numbers, percentage. So out of 100 people that were questioned, and this is by Indeed, by the way, so this is their stat, there's a percentage of candidates out there that actually expect to apply via a mobile device. It's currently at 56%. It was about 25% last year, so it's growing. And obviously a lot of you are giving 30s, 50s, 90s, but over 50% of the market expects to be able to apply via their mobile, via their phone. Think about, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a website and you've got jobs on it, 50% of the people looking at your jobs right now expect to be able to apply via their mobile. Are you allowing them to do that? And does the copy and the overall presence that you have allow them to use their mobile device in a particular way? I think the thing to consider is, again, I'm using my mobile device, and ultimately it's all about, I can read what I need to see super quick. I have over 200 apps on my phone. That's not just Lisa Jones, that's the market generally. I'm disrupted at every moment by text coming through, Candy Crush telling me that I'm no longer the winner anymore, my mum ringing me, it running out of power. You need to engage me while I'm actually surfing and make my job super, super quick. We all know that if things don't work well on our mobile device, we bugger off and go somewhere else. Now, someone's saying, how do I actually solve this problem? Well, clearly what you do is you come to Barclay Jones and we give you loads of help on how to improve your advert writing and assets and all that lovely stuff. And I'm not going to pitch that today, but certainly you have to improve the way that you're running your adverts, the way that you're marketing them across the web. It's a bigger answer than today. Maybe we'll do a webinar on it at some stage. The next thing I want to talk to you about is making your content sticky. This is a big goal or strategy for you marketeers next year. And when again I say content, I'm not just talking about the things that you feel you have to write. The most engaging recruiters out there will never write a thing, but they will share in the future. Now, someone's just asked me a question. Is a company app the future? This is my view. For me to put an app on my phone is a big ask. For me to continue using it if I don't see immediate value is a massive ask. And again, if the average user has got 200 apps on their mobile device and everyone's raising their eyebrows going, well, I haven't, I can guarantee you've got near to that number. And then the only reason that you don't realize you've got that many is because you don't use half of them. When we've seen recruiters create apps for themselves, we've said, do you know what? If you can make that app useful to me, so I become addicted to it and it's necessary. So the short answer is I don't think recruitment apps work in my experience. And the main reason I don't think they work is because the majority of the ones that I've seen offer no value to candidates unless they're timesheeting for contractors or there's something that's going to actually help me find regular employment. The average person in the UK takes about 2 to 2.5 years to change their mind about the job they're in. So God forbid you create an app that someone's only going to use once every 2 years. And let's face it, people are changing their phones every year right now. Content's important. We've got to make sticky content. We've got to create content that people are going to think, whether or not I'm looking for a job, this guy's talking sense. I'm going to watch him from now on. And then when the job posts and it's perfect for them, they're ready to rock. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Greg says cold calls, yeah, but warm calls are better. A marketeer's job and a recruiter's job is to share and create enough content that when that recruiter makes that call, it's warm as hell, hot to trot, whatever you want to call it. It's really helpful to me that when I speak to clients, they know who I am because they've seen my name or I've been referred. That's really, really important. That's warm, isn't it? That's not cold. And obviously, if I spoke at an event, and APSCo are fantastic at putting me in front of people, that's really, really helpful as well. So making sure your content and your overall strategy for getting noticed and improving the brand is front and center. And that's why when recruiters say they want to outsource their marketing, I have a challenge with that because ultimately that's like outsourcing your client meetings, outsourcing your phone calls. Anybody want to guess how much that toilet is worth? Put in your chat facility. Guess how much that gold toilet is worth. My God, you are cheap shots. It's worth £10 million. Peter's saying it's priceless. No doubt. Would you even wee on it for 10 million? This is a golden toilet, and the reason I've popped it in is just to have a bit of fun, really. But most recruitment content plans I come across are full of we. And if I was being audacious, I'd replace that word with a swear word. Because it's all about us. It's all about we do this, we do this. My content plan is all about we. My website's all about we. And it's not about you. And it's not about my candidates, and it's not about my clients. In fact, I don't want to put anything about my clients on my website because my clients don't come to my website. And I'm like, of course they don't. There's nothing there for them. Why would they come to your website? There's no content there. Whereas when we work with clients, i.e. recruiters, to get client-related content on their website, all of a sudden the numbers go up, which is kind of quite nice. So having a content plan that's not full of we is a massive strategy for next year, because if you want to improve your brand and attract talent to you, you need a content plan that's about the people you're trying to attract. And again, that might be an audacious suggestion, but that's something I'm really keen to establish with most of my clients for next year is let's get your content plans rocking and rolling and attracting the people that you want to read them. And they don't care about recruiters, they care about themselves, and that's fine, that's normal. Junk food content is something I've got a bit of a passion about. Now, when was the last time any of you had any junk food? Maybe this morning for breakfast. Please feel free to feedback. Interestingly enough, the burger has now become a sophisticated food item. Some of us lucky enough to know about Five Guys will know all about this. I go to Five Guys and I don't feel like I've had any junk food. But junk food content for me is recruitment-led content. Yes, I've got another person on the phone that loves Five Guys as well. Junk food content for me then is recruitment-led content. So let's talk about 10 things to do in an interview, 10 ties to wear to an interview, 5 questions not to ask in an interview, how to get a job in, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, for God's sake, the majority of people out there aren't even looking for work, so why are you boring me? Now, junk food does have its place and it has its time, but you don't eat it every day, otherwise you'll be on a documentary for being lifted out of a house by a crane. So what we say to you is this, definitely have junk food in your plan, but don't make it self-sustaining because it's not. Think about your sourcing strategy, and think about your sourcing strategy for 2016 has to be about attraction. There are some fantastic companies out there that will train you how to source, and we love those people to bits. But I must stress, if you're looking for people and you look like crap, that is not how you get a date, unless, of course, it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning and everyone else has left the room and everyone's desperate. Think about your sourcing strategy for next year being cleverer than simply a really long Boolean string. It's about attraction. So what kind of content are you creating or finding if you haven't got time to create it? Because again, we get that you're very time pressured, but what are you offering of value and how are you keeping people glued to you? Because it's all about them. It's not about you. Think about the way the market's changed over recent years and the fact that a lot of people on social media actively look for content to help improve their careers. So tips for accountants on how to requalify in their exams. Tips for teachers on how to stay developed if they're a support teacher, even though they get no developmental opportunities when they're a support teacher. New drugs laws, all sorts of stuff. You don't have to write any of this. You can find it, but obviously writing stuff can be really, really helpful. That's another webinar for another day. But marketing your job should be to attract talent for your recruiters, and recruiters, you need to do a bit of this yourself as well. There's so much to talk about. It's ridiculous how much there is to talk about. The challenge that I often find when I'm working with clients is where to start. And obviously a content plan is a great start. We don't have time to go into the machinations of what that is today, but here's some stuff that you really need to be thinking about. You know, if you don't get on the back of Star Wars coming out later on this year, you're absolutely crazy. Think about events. Think about culture. What's happening in the world right now that's going to help your candidates and clients? Think about awards and events. Think about, obviously, social media. Interestingly, stuff on Twitter is more likely to be tweeted. As in, you're on Twitter and you tweet something about Twitter. People love that kind of stuff. Days of the year are obviously very important, and as I said to you at the beginning, I know it's saxophone, nacho and lawyer day, but sometimes there's the love your accountant day. Love your lawyer day obviously is today, so if you're in legal and you're not capitalizing on that content, you're crazy, and you could have a whole month's worth of content related to that. But what's really, really important, and the most important content, are your jobs. Now, I've been hearing for a few years now that it's a really bad thing to market your job, and if I'm really, really honest, I used to be one of those people. There's probably a blog on my website somewhere of enough about the jobs. And I think if I'm honest, the reason that I wrote that all those years ago was because that's all that recruiters really had to talk about. And I know that when you go to a client site or when you take your marketeers with you, you actually talk about the client, etc., and the talent market and the sector and all the stuff that's happening in the world right now. But jobs are important. And I often meet marketeers whose LinkedIn pages don't even have their jobs on. And I'm like 71% of people on LinkedIn who are following a company, and that's 80% of the LinkedIn market, by the way, want to see jobs on your job page, and you've decided that it's a bad move to market your jobs. It's a bad move to not market your jobs. Just do them right. But they are your most important content, and they're the content that you spend the least time on. You tweet the worst because you tweet them like a job spec. None of us buy a car based on what's under the bonnet. Most of us buy a car because of how we feel when we're sat in it. It's all about that. It's not necessarily about the spec and the size of the engine. That's a criteria, definitely, but it's how we feel. And we don't write jobs for candidates anymore. We write jobs according to the spec that we got from the HR person who knows nothing about the role. We also mute our jobs and keep them secret. And that's a great way of marketing, by the way, isn't it? Not telling anybody anything. She's being sarcastic. But 91% of people polled last year said that they wouldn't apply for a job unless there was a brand on it. Now, that's difficult because some of you really want to keep your job secret because you don't want candidates going direct to the client. And I get that totally. The challenge is, if you do have to keep the client name secret, you have to overcompensate with a level of detail and feeling and emotion within the job. Again, another webinar for another day, but just consider jobs are your most important content. Don't not talk about them, and absolutely make sure there's enough detail in there to attract passives as well as actives. Can anybody remember the stat from a slide earlier on? What percentage of applications are actually made on a desktop device? You clever lot. I'm getting lots of 93s. 93% of people are forced, because we're crap at mobile in the recruitment industry, forced to be that engaged in a job that you've written that they'll put their mobile device down, go and find a laptop or a desktop after they've bathed the kids, got off the bus, made the tea, whatever it is they're doing, and physically apply via a desktop. I can do everything else via a mobile device. I can book my nail appointment. I can book a holiday. I can spend a fortune. I can probably even buy a house these days. Scary stuff. You've got to think about what's so special about you and your job to get me to stick to you long enough to be disrupted by putting my mobile device down and going to a desktop. Have a think about that. Do we also know on average, the latest stat that's come out in the community, how long people tend to take before engaging, not before applying, but before engaging with a company as a candidate. Anybody want to guess as to how long I'm likely to spend online researching you before I engage with you? We've got 2 hours. That's the latest stat. And we don't even realise we're doing it. When was the last time any of us went online, stayed online and came offline and thought I've achieved my objective? No, we go online and then we get totally lost in a maze of other stuff. So just consider that if you don't have enough for me to get my teeth into, I'm probably going to go elsewhere. You know, my husband sent me, we've got our 10th anniversary soon, the day of Star Wars coming out. Does it get any better than that? And he sent me an email saying, this is where I want to take you. And the first thing I said to him was, well, what does TripAdvisor say? Because I'm not interested in what the website says. I'm interested in what everyone else has got to say, because the website's propaganda. I'm interested in what everyone else has to say for themselves. You've got to think about that. And if you can add an element of a TripAdvisory feel to your jobs, and there is a way of doing that, and I'm going to keep it secret for now, then that could be the way forward. Get your talent to buy into you, because jobs have a job. They're not just there to tick a box and spend 5 minutes on, right, I've done that, it's on Twitter and I've not got anybody. Well, that didn't work, did it? I meet recruiters who don't advertise anymore because they think it doesn't work. No, the way they do it doesn't work. So think about how jobs should attract passives, and they should obviously, for the recruiters in the room, you want more people looking at you because you can press connect. You obviously want, if you're a recruitment leader, to grow your business, and that's a goal as well. So you want more people in your business, which means you need to attract more internally, and you want your competitors looking at you. Never be worried about that. Your jobs should be, come over here if you think you're hard enough. You obviously want to put clients back in their boxes as well. So client, we've both got access to LinkedIn, but I'm a specialist in what I do here, and if you want the best talent and you want the talent to stick to you and stay with you for a certain amount of time, and you want to guarantee they're going to start with you on time, you kind of need to use me for this. And also, I know how to advertise and attract. You just know how to buy advertising space. There's a big difference. Marketeers want to increase web hits, applications and placements. That has to be your role as well. Although a lot of marketeers, when I start working with them, are more interested in web hits, Google hits, LinkedIn hits. Great. Let's move it forward, because your recruiters are only going to respect you if you deliver what they need, and they need placement. So your adverts need to improve, everybody. Seriously, we've done some fantastic work with clients across the UK to massively improve their relevant application rate. And it's not just about putting the client name in, it's about making jobs more interesting and more sticky. You need to get engaged, ladies and gentlemen. I am sick of hearing that Facebook is not a good move for recruiters, and certainly Greg Savage would basically say linking humans with technology and marketing is key for next year. So if you're going to get engaged, and I hear a lot of recruitment leaders talking about increasing engagement, but at the same time say, but yeah, we don't get the social media thing. Well, engagement isn't about hitting the phones longer and having more meetings. It absolutely is engaging with your workforce. And interestingly, you knowing what your workforce is engaged in is the first step. I've yet to meet a recruitment business who says to me they've got data on how their candidates interact online. They're making assumptions based on how they feel rather than facts. So what we do with a lot of our recruiters, if they've got the bandwidth, is we send out surveys to their talent asking the question, what do you use and when do you use it? We don't ask them to publish that because that would be great competitor information and we don't want to give that away. But we do ask them to use the data that comes back. And if 75% of the people that they are connected to use Facebook, albeit just to look at funny pictures, then they need to spend time on Facebook. You might say that people don't look for jobs through Facebook. I've got data to prove that. Wrong, in terms of they might not realize they're looking for jobs on Facebook, but if the right one came up, they absolutely would be. So start engaging with the streams that your talent is engaged with, otherwise you're killing yourself. And obviously one of those is Instagram for recruiters. I ran a webinar last week on Instagram. Anybody there? Give me an I in their little questions box if you were on my Instagram webinar last week. Lots of eyes coming through. Now, the Instagram for Recruiters webinar is on our blog, barclayjones.com blog. Someone's just said, is there recording? Yes, there is. And that gorgeous little creature there is a guaca. That was the most, apparently the happiest photo in the universe in 2015 for all sorts of reasons. We'll talk about that some other day. But you've got to get engaged with the systems that your candidates and clients are engaged with. Otherwise, you're just doing what we did in the 1870s, which is just using your Rolodex and using a bit of flint to attract. It's no good. And you've also occasionally, and marketeers, listen, I love you guys to bits, but you don't press reply enough. What you do is you tweet, but you don't engage. And pressing reply, when I work with marketeers, I give them a routine to work with every day to force them to do this. And the results are awesome. So think about, please, how you're actually going to engage and pollinate the web with your gorgeous brand, not just by buffering everything and hoping to God people read it. So think about your CRM. Think about the kinds of things that you need to do with your CRM. Think about, as a marketeer, what data you need access to. Because basically now we've got into this modern era where you need social media branding and CRM. And of course, Greg is always right. We have a motto in our business called Love Your CRM. And what we're interested in is that loving your CRM is absolutely critical for your 2016 strategy. If you don't love your CRM, you have no data and you can't market from it. And marketeers say to me every day, Lisa, my data is crap. I have nothing. Recruitment consultants are not delivering any decency back to the system. And I come across recruiters every day, ladies and gentlemen, who are great at placing people in 90 seconds. In other words, the invoice is due, so all the data quickly goes on. You need a quality data strategy. You've got to think about what your CRM can do for you in 2016 so you can actually start thinking about outbound marketing like we used to. Because everyone's gone inbound, everyone's gone social media crazy, and I know that's important, but actually gathering this data should serve a purpose where actually you have great data and you can start sending mail shots, looking at click-through rates, looking at lead gen, gorgeous stuff. So start thinking about your CRM, please, and how it actually has an impact on your overall marketing strategy. So we've dealt with a load of stuff today, and there's loads more that we could go through. What particular takeaways, ladies and gentlemen, have you got for today? What kinds of things are you going to do differently now that you've watched this webinar and spent some of your precious time listening to me? Give me some feedback. Someone's got make a plan. Good start. We've got Facebook and Twitter, obviously. Love Greg is definitely the key. It's really about looking at 2016 as not just the same old. You've got to start being more competitive. You've got to start respecting what marketing can do and having some tangible goals. And obviously the goals that we set at the beginning, improve the brand, attract more, make more profit, place more candidates, improve the speed at which that you place candidates as well, so your cost of hire goes down. Mobile is increasingly important, and obviously Google made a massive stab at this earlier on this year when it basically said, no mobile, no rankings. And obviously engaging with people is absolutely critical, and job adverts for most of my clients have been a massive deal for this year. We've done some great work on that. Okay, there's loads of places you can find out more about us. Clearly we've got our blog, which we adore, and it gets some great hits, and we publish all over the social media world as well. We've got a Facebook page, and we'd love it. If you got value from today, please pop onto the Barclay Jones Facebook page and leave us a little review. We'd love a 5-star. We've got a YouTube channel as well where we leave regular tips about all of the different systems that we ask you to use more effectively. So my name's Lisa Jones. Obviously, you've had me for this webinar today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy yours, and I'll catch up with you very soon. We have a webinar at the end of November on Bullhorn Mobile, and we have a webinar in December with Bond Adapt about being a Jedi and sourcing using Jedi skills. So keep an eye on our blog for how to register for those, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. And all the feedback coming through is lovely. Thank you so much for your thanks. Genuinely appreciate your time today. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.